I believe we each think at some point in our lives that we know what God has planned for us. We don't even have the slightest clue what God's plan is for our lives. As was so aptly stated by the poet Robert Burns, "The best laid schemes o' mice, and men gain aft agley," which has been modernized as the saying, "The best laid plans of mice and men often go awry." When I was younger, I thought I had God's plan for my life figured out. I was going to preach His word from some pulpit until old age either made me incapable or death claimed me. I didn't realize how young I would be when that old age left me incapable, at least temporarily, of preaching the gospel from a pulpit. It is tempting to plan our futures when things are going well and all the lines fall into our hands in pleasant places. When everything goes our way, why should we not expect it always will? Yet, as we get older and wiser, Lord willing, we realize that we are never truly in control of our futures. We cannot tell today what tomorrow may bring. I expect to take a nap, but who knows? Even when God made it clear to earlier saints what His plan was for their lives, they still had plenty of room to make mistakes and to misunderstand God's ultimate plan. Take, for example, Abram and Sarai. They were called by God and told to leave their country to strike out toward an unknown future. God showed them just enough for them to remain faithful to Him. When, in Genesis 15, God makes a tremendous promise to Abram concerning his future, He still does not reveal to him every detail. He said to Abram at that time, "Do not fear, Abram. I am a shield to you. Your reward shall be very great." Genesis 15:1. In Genesis 12, when Abram was 75 years of age, God promised to make you into a great nation. It is uncertain how old Abram was when God restated the promise in Genesis 15, but He made it clear to Abram that he would have a son through whom God would bless all the nations of the earth. How is that for knowing what God's future is for your life? However, God failed to tell Abraham when those things would take place. Years, and soon a decade, had passed, and Abram still had no child, and Sarai remained as barren as she had always been. Abram fell prey to a base temptation. He decided he needed to help God out. Sarai hatched an excellent plan, or so she thought, to help God remain faithful to Abram. She said in Genesis 16:2, "See now, the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Please have relations with my slave woman. Perhaps I will obtain children through her." Abram listened to Sarai's voice. By listening to the voice of his wife, rather than continuing to wait on the Lord, Abram brought Ishmael into the world with the aid of his wife's slave from Egypt, named Hagar. The results of that mistake can still be felt in the world today. Abram was 86 when Ishmael was born, meaning he had waited 11 years from the first promise. Surely God wouldn't expect us to wait 11 years for His will to be revealed. Eventually, when Abram was 99 years old, God appeared to him again and clarified His plans. In Genesis 17, He told Abram, starting in verse 15, "As for your wife Sarai, you shall not call her by the name Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name." 16, "I will bless her, and indeed I will give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of peoples will come from her." Abraham, as God changed his name, and Sarah his wife, gave birth to their son Isaac when Abraham was 101 and Sarah was 91. Imagine that, being God's plan for them, to have a tiny baby born when they were in the upper reaches of their expected lifespans. As was stated by Paul in his epistle to the Romans, and by the writer of Hebrews, Abraham and Sarah were as good as dead when they gave birth to Isaac. Imagine if you went to the doctor as a 90-year-old woman who had always been barren, and had the doctor confirm, "Yes, you are pregnant. You're as good as dead, but you are pregnant." I'm pretty sure that as a 75-year-old man, Abram already thought he was too old to have children. Yet God made him wait 26 years before he and his wife Sarah became parents. Lots of life can happen in 26 years. If you think you've got God's plan for your life figured out, you'd better think again. We only know that God is working all things together for the good of those who trust Him. Do you trust God to do what is best for you? Only He knows His plans for you. Let Him work.